There are many stories about Sacramento Mall. Some of them are true, and some of them are almost history. And sometimes it's kind of fun to deal with those almost history stories. Sometimes they're what people wish was true, and in other cases it's things that people propose to be that never happened. Probably the greatest creator of almost history stories is in fact the Redevelopment Agency, because they generated all these proposals for grand buildings and schemes that never get built. And it's fun to look back on some of those, the different versions of the K Street Mall, or wonderful high-rise buildings that were to be built 20 years ago on sites that still don't have buildings on them, or just now starting to have buildings on them. There are many crazy ideas that certainly we don't have time to talk about. There are proposals to build a restaurant on top of the Tower Bridge. There's proposals to have a balloon on a 2,000-foot cable over the city. There's a proposal to build a Space Needle on top of the WX freeway. There's a proposal to build a Polynesian village down on the waterfront next to Old Sacramento, just south of the Tower Bridge. There's a proposal to build a World's Fair in the railroad yards and then convert it to the Smithsonian West. So there's just all sorts of these. But some of the best stories, some of the very best stories, come around these stories that people want to be true. And I'll give you a couple of good examples. A gentleman came into my office 25, 30 years ago, and he had some little things he wanted to see if we wanted. There was this beautiful Wells Fargo box. I really liked the Wells Fargo box. The rest of the stuff wasn't very interesting, but I really liked that Wells Fargo box. But he made it really plain that you had to take it all. Well, all wasn't too much. It was 3 or 4 more objects, but that Wells Fargo box just had my attention, so I just had to take it. But the other things were interesting. One was, he said, oh, this is the shoe thrown from the Pony Express horse first trip going east from Sacramento. And I can remember asking him, oh, wow, you got all that information. Where did you find it? In my backyard. Okay, where is your backyard? Over on E Street. Oh, that's a long ways for the shoe to go because the horse went up J Street, you know. And, you know, he huffed and he puffed and he kind of made a story about it. I didn't have the heart to tell him that it wasn't a horseshoe. It was half of an oxen shoe, and a half a shoe, you know. And, but that was his story. The other one was he had a sword that he wanted me to have. And he said, this is the sword that was used to sever the fingers of Three-Fingered Jack. And I said, oh, okay. Well, I showed that sword sometime later to an expert who said, oh, well, that's actually a bayonet. And it's French, and it's about 1890. Well, Three-Fingered Jack's fingers had been in a pickle jar in San Francisco for a long time before that. But these guys, they get these stories and they make them up and they can't stand it. They love it and they embellish it. A similar issue happened at the governor's mansion. I saw a guy go on about Governor Pardee and the governor's mansion, and he told a beautiful story. It was a beautiful story. The problem is the lady next to me was Pardee's daughter, and she'd been there at that time, and she told him that it wasn't true. It was an interesting confrontation.